All right, hey guys, what's going on? Thomas Grabowski here. Hope you're having a wonderful night. I'm just jumping on here to talk about a little concept with you guys called recalibration or calibration when it comes to your diet. So, I'm a big believer in metabolic typing. Not only am I a believer, I believe it's grounded in science, it's grounded in reality, and it's grounded towards individualized nutrition. And the reason why I like metabolic typing so much is that it's the best way, in my honest opinion, from my experience, to really have a better understanding of how the body works, but also how nutrition works with the body. And this is something I really want to touch base on because a lot of people don't understand how nutrition works and how foods affect the body and the mind. So now there's many places I can start and there's a lot I want to say. But what I really want to boil it down to is number one is that when it comes to choosing a diet or choosing a way of eating, you really have to consider your individualized metabolic needs. And if you don't assess yourself or don't have any sort of kind of visual or practical assessments that can help you relate to yourself and your body and what your needs are, now this can be any test. These can be blood tests, they can be naturopathic tests, these can be nutritional tests. But really what it boils down to is having an understanding of how your basic appetite works and what foods will support you in the long run. And it really varies from person to person. And there's so many factors that influence our diet. So it's not only what we look like, our height, our shape, our body structure, but it's also how we metabolize food. So certain foods we metabolize better and certain foods we don't metabolize as well. Or we metabolize certain foods at any given time very well, or at a certain given time we don't metabolize foods very well. It's very tricky and it really depends. Some diets work well for some people. Some people can go on a keto diet and they can do very well. But metabolic typing, when you know your metabolic type, there's three types of types. You're a carb type, a protein type, or a mixed type. And essentially, those three types digest, assimilate, and assimilate and eliminate nutrients. Elimination is really important too, because if you're not eliminating waste, you're going to have food backed up in your guts, and that can lead to bloating, but it can also lead to tons of health problems as well down the line. So if you're eating a lot of meat and you're not taking a crap afterwards and you feel depressed, well, it's probably because you're eating too much meat, right? That's just one common example. That's a very, very overgeneralization. But in theory, because you're not just going to eat meat by itself, you're probably going to have potatoes and some kind of vegetable to go with it. Ideally, some people just do meat and potatoes, and that's very bad in my opinion. Sometimes it's okay, but it's really good to have some kind of greens with any kind of meat, even if it's a small amount. Yeah, you may digest meat better, but having some kind of nutrients, some kind of greens on your plate is a really, really solid, sound approach. But what I wanted to really discuss here, guys, is you're either a protein type, a carb type, or a mixed type. So a carb type digests carbohydrates better than other people. Very oversimplification. I'm going to be very, very basic with you guys. Very simple, very bland. But ideally, these people can tolerate more carbohydrates. Now, they can tolerate processed foods, but it is ideal that you don't eat a lot of processed foods because that's not sound nutrition, and that's not a really good idea. Like eating too much candy or chips or any kind of bagels or pasta, ideally is not a good idea or a good thing to implement. However, there are people who do that, but that gives you a little bit of a sort of indicator that you're more of a carbohydrate type. Just switch over the carb sources to more whole grains, more whole grain foods, and eating more lighter protein. So carbohydrate types really focus on more whole grains, more a little bit of fat, not a lot of fat, and lean proteins. Typically like chicken breast, turkey slices, very lean meats. Maybe pork tenderloin is more of a leaner protein. White fish, these kind of tuna, these kind of foods, eggs, chia seeds in small amounts. These are kind of foods that are good for a carbohydrate type. They will digest better more lean proteins, and they do much better off a higher carb diet. So something like a pasta with some ground chicken, a little bit with a bunch of tomato sauce and a salad, and maybe like a mango juice or a couple pieces of fruit for, let's say, dinner or lunch, that would really energize a carbohydrate type and give them energy and mentality and vitality throughout the day, so they can eat tons of carbohydrates, feel good, and feel revitalized. Now, I'm going to tell you where these things can go eerie if you eat too much like that. And again, it depends on the individual and depends how you metabolize things. I'm really lucky. I'm going to get to my point in a second. 5 minutes? Okay. Making sure on time. So ideally, those people do better with carbs. So things can go weary as well, though. If you eat too many carbohydrates, right? I'm just going to go into it. You can experience negative symptoms. So if you eat too many carbs, you get a sugar crash, right? So it really depends on your metabolic type. So secondly is a protein type. So a protein type digests more protein or is able to handle protein much better. Another thing, carbohydrate types are not good at handling a lot of protein. If they have a high protein meal, they experience negative side effects or negative health effects. So if I gave a carbo type steak, a dark meat steak, they're not going to feel good. But if I gave that same dark red meat steak to a protein type, then they're going to digest and assimilate that steak much better, and they're going to feel more calm, more energized, and they're going to feel more vital and life force because they are meeting their nutritional needs. I hope you see where I'm going with this, because this isn't a black or white approach where, veganism's good, omnivorous is good, eating a balanced diet, which is always good in my opinion because you get variety. I think that's the ultimate goal, is always having a balanced diet, but I can be very biased in this perspective. But I think balance is something we all strive for, and we should all strive for. I really believe balance is the key to everything, but we have to be aware of what works for us and what doesn't. So if we don't have balance, though, our bodies go wreak havoc and we don't know what's wrong with us, and then we think something outside of us is wrong. We start taking medications, pills, seeing doctors, or like, well, I have this symptom, that symptom, this isn't working, that isn't working. But if you understood metabolic typing from the first place, you wouldn't have these issues. Now, I'm not saying that you should know about it, but I think more people do need to know about it, because if they don't know about metabolic typing, they don't really know how certain foods metabolize in their body. And really, a lot of their ailments could really be coming from what they're eating. I mean, they may be eating the wrong thing because somebody told them that this is good for them, and they're eating that thing. But now they're suffering health consequences because they're not eating right for their metabolic type. I hope you see where I'm going with this. So, protein types, they can do the opposite. They can eat larger amounts of meat, smaller amount of starches, and some vegetables. They don't really do well with vegetables, but more high meat and starches. So let's say 30-40% of your plate. Let's say a full plate size. This is a mini plate. 30 to 40%, like a steak, 8 to 12 ounce steak, a little bit of broccoli, a little bit of potatoes, and then a large amount of butter. They can tolerate fats better as well. Fats and protein. A protein type can tolerate better, whereas a carbohydrate type cannot. So protein type does better with protein and fats, so they can do like 10-20% of their plate with fats, and then the rest of carbohydrates, so like 30-20, between like 10 to 30%, maybe 40% carbs, depending on the individual. There's different ratios, but these are just general guidelines that you play with. Ultimately, it boils down to one thing, which I will get to in a second. This one thing will help you find the right metabolic type for you, and will help optimize every area of your life: your health, your well-being, your mentality, your physical fitness, your body weight, how you feel, how you look, everything. I'm telling you, this stuff is phenomenal. It should be talked about more and should be discussed, and it should be shared with the world, because this stuff is very groundbreaking and it could really disrupt a lot of the medical industry that's going on right now. And I'm hoping to do that because I believe a lot of the medical industry is not good for us, and I want to abolish that crap because we need better stuff and better options for people. Not to say there's no bad with it, but it's not good for human beings in general, in my opinion. So, number 3 is stay away from the conventional medicine, because in my opinion, that shit doesn't work. It's effective when you have an injury or you're hurt, but even then, my dad's seeing physio right now, and it's not even working for him. So clearly, the guy has no idea what the fuck he's doing. So, anyways, 3rd type is the mixed type. Now, this is the most challenging type, and this is why I'm going to make this video. So I'm going to make it part 2 on this video. So this is part 1 about metabolic typing. I was talking about recalibration and fine-tuning your diet. So I'm going to finish this video in part 2. This might be a part 3 series. We'll see how it goes. So keeping it short, keeping under 10. Let's get going.